Hi there, welcome to Games Over Coffee Consulting. This is where people give me games and I give feedback on their game design. Although soon, it's not going to be just game design, it's going to be storytelling. My name is Devon. Today we're talking about Mouse and Bunny Tetris that was made by Tim? If you're a developer and you have a game that you have storytelling in, you feel like you want to get some game design advice about how to better tell the story in your game, please submit it to me. You can submit it to gamesover.coffee. Today we're not talking about storytelling. Today we're talking about a very simple game, and this might be a very short video. Okay, so what did Tim say? Tim said, I'm not sure if the second player has enough to do. Depending on the people who play, they might get angry at each other and might have the feeling of not wanting to co-op, but play against each other. I'm also not sure that the floating tiles, if maybe they should drop immediately. In the current state of the game, I think it's a bit confusing to tell when they drop. So I don't think I've ever talked about a multiplayer game here before. Specifically, I don't think I've ever talked about a cooperative game except for Persona, which was, although it was a single player game that was, it's like a single player co-op. Anyway, so in this game, as you can see right here, it's basically Tetris. I mean, he calls it Mouse and Bunny Tetris. It plays a lot more like Puyo Puyo, or the way that I know it, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Actually, it even kind of has the same kind of animation. It has the little squares that like blow up when their eyes get all big and then they inflate. They're supposed to match more than 4 of the same color, and if they're all touching, then they'll clear. So the one thing I want to focus on here is cooperative play, because I think that's a really interesting problem to look at. Usually when you see multiplayer in games, it has to do with one person versus another, because that's like the easiest way to make a game, right? You have one person trying to get a goal, the other person trying to get another goal, and they're trying to fight against each other to do that. It's really easy to make a game that way. One of the first, console games ever being Pong. Making people play cooperatively is different, and there's not a whole lot of games that have cooperative play, and the ones that do don't typically have asymmetrical gameplay. If you're unfamiliar with asymmetrical gameplay, it's just, when one person has a different job than the other. Asymmetric gameplay usually comes in the form of counter-op, where you have one person who's like the enemy versus the team of people that are not the enemy. Among Us is probably one of the most popular asymmetrical type of games. To look at cooperative play, what we're going to look at is why the developer would be afraid of people playing against each other rather than with each other. And I think it's actually a really simple solution. When I was researching this type of gameplay, I thought about this sentence. I said, to get good co-op gameplay, both players need each other, and they need to have their own goals. So when you're cooperative with another player, you guys are, of course, going toward the same goal, right? There is a goal set out, and both of you are trying to get to it. However, both of you need each other also in order for it to be cooperative. If you think about the multiplayer in like Portal 2, there's no way for one player to get further than the other, right? They both have to cooperate. Each player needs each other, but of course each player also has their own goal. So looking at Mouse and Bunny Tetris, how are these two players playing? Well, the first player is just moving a little block and rotating it just like regular Tetris. The second player is playing from the bottom of the screen, and they're swapping lines left and right. And basically what they're doing is reordering the lines so that there's an easier time of matching the colors. Now, the weird thing here is that player 1 does not need player 2. In fact, when I played this game myself, I figured, I need another player, but I'm just going to try it myself first. So I went ahead and just started playing without knowing that the second player was controllable at all. And I just played the game regularly, without using the second player controls, and I got pretty far. And it didn't dawn on me until later that I was like, oh, there's another dimension to the game. The player 2 can actually swap things. After that, then I started controlling both players just to see, what the dynamic was like. And yeah, I found out that player 2 needs player 1 quite a lot, but player 1 doesn't really need player 2. Because player 1 doesn't need player 2 per se, player 1 might have a goal of their own as they play the game, and they might be trying to line up a specific combo. Say player 2 is trying to help them, but they don't really know because they're not like communicating fully. Maybe they're just playing the game. And when they start swapping things, maybe they might be doing things that player 1 doesn't want them to do because they're messing up their goal. The weird thing here is that player 2 doesn't really have a goal of their own. They kind of share a goal, and it does make sense. It does work. But yeah, player 2 doesn't really have player 2's goal. If there was some sort of system in here to where player 1 couldn't go forward, couldn't actually advance unless player 2 helped, then that would be different, right? If there were like I don't know, some things that player 2 could only destroy. Like in Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, like the little rocks that come out, maybe only player 2 can destroy those rocks. Or maybe the field starts out with something that's, filled with a lot of blocks and player 2 has to clear them out before the player 1 can stack them. Maybe the field is separated into different areas and maybe player 2 has to clear one of those areas before player 1 can play in it. Something like that. Something to where both player 2 and player 1 both have goals and they need each other at the same time. With that said, that's kind of everything. I'm going to talk a little bit about the regular game design here, but that is the basic message I wanted to get across. I know this game was made very quickly and it was probably made for just a specific purpose. There's not a lot of polish in it, and that's totally fine, but it makes some things difficult to understand, like why are we playing the game? There is a score that goes up and up, but I'm not sure if there's a max score. Maybe I just didn't play long enough, but I got to around 1,000 and kind of got bored after that. There's no levels or anything like that. The other thing that this dev talked about was the idea that these blocks stick. I think Tetris 2 had that, like Puyo Puyo or Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. But in this game, it kind of sits there for a little bit until you swap it with the other player or until you hit it, I think, with another block or something like that. Think about Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, how we only have we have just one shape, and that's just 2 beans. And we just play those 2 beans over and over and over. Now the colors are different, obviously, but the game is really, really focused on building combos. And the way they do that is by not introducing any other type of thing that will pull the player's attention away. It's really easy to set up things like combos with just 2 beans at a time because all you have to do is focus on just those 2 beans. Now, if you had to focus on the shape of those beans also, like if they were in a Z shape, it wouldn't be harder per se, but it would be more complex and it would take the player's attention away of what they're trying to do, which is primarily trying to create combos, specifically in that game. I had a hard time creating combos in this Mouse and Bunny Tetris game. There was a few times that I did, but every time that I did, it was hard to do it again and again and again. There was also no motivation for me, no push for me to continue doing combos. I would just get an acknowledgement from the background, and that was neat, but I didn't have any other bonus. I think there may have been a bonus, I don't know. I think that's kind of obvious because I do believe, like I said, this game is pretty small and it's not really meant to be played forever and ever. But if it does get bigger, that is something that I would require as a player, is more motivation in order to play the game. It's a really, really short game, and this is a really, really short video for that reason. Again, if you have a game and it has a storytelling in it and you want to make it better, you can submit it to me and I'll talk about it here. I'll give you some feedback. You can submit it in my email currently, info@gamesover.coffee. Thank you so much for watching. I have my coffee and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace. Cold. Cold coffee.